Space, Supreme Understanding. Yeah, I haven't recorded the video in a little while because we're working on this How to Hustle and Win DVD, and that's been like the #1 priority. So, you know, any filming we do has really been for that. But people have been asking me about my opinions or my thoughts on the death of Bin Laden, and I commented on a little bit on Facebook, but I figured I would add on a little bit more via YouTube. People are saying one or two things. Boom, Bin Laden is dead. Hooray, hooray. You know, now what? Or, nah, Bin Laden ain't dead. Bin Laden is still alive. There's a third perspective, maybe like about 500 perspectives, really. There's a third major perspective that hasn't really gotten as much attention, which is Bin Laden is dead, but he ain't died on May 2nd. He been dead for like years and years. Actually, the most consistent report, even though there's a number of them, was that he died in like December 2001, like right after September 11th. But let me get into what all that means, right? And in terms of, you know, if you want to look that up, you know, it's pretty easy to, you know, research, you know, that Bin Laden, you know, because he had kidney problems, he was on dialysis, you know, he had a dialysis machine, you know, so which kind of like kills that whole idea of him running and hiding in the mountains. You can't hide in the mountains with a dialysis machine, for real. You ever seen them shits? Them shits is huge. And so he was being treated in a hospital in Pakistan, and they say he died in the hospital in Pakistan, right? But then the question is, well, if he did die, you know, why didn't that make the news? And, you know, why was he kept alive, or for, I mean, you know, why, at least in the American public's mind, for so long? And it makes sense if you think about it. You know, there's movies that talk about it, like Wag the Dog and all that, where they talk about how you got to create the idea of a terrible threat. And, you know, white people, Europeans, they've done this over and over again, you know, with the with the Red Scare, with the communists, and, you know, then before that it was the Crusades, with the Saracens, with the Muslims, like they were, you know, and then the Moors, and this has always been something that has been like the most terrible threat to white people. And if you look at what they have in common, typically it represents the prospect of non-white people having a fair chance in this world. Even with communism, even though it was led for the most part by, you know, the Soviet Union and all that, who were white, it represented the possibility that the people of China and the people of all these other non-white communist nations, and nations considering communism, and nations that were embracing socialism, like those in Africa, could unite under one common banner that advocated equality, you know, and wanted to eliminate racism. That was one of the principles of communism. I mean, even though it didn't play out that well for, you know, white American communists who still discriminated against, you know, blacks, but that's another story. The point is, always a boogeyman. It's always a boogeyman. Shit, we even made up our own boogeyman. You know, we looking for, I don't even want to talk about that, because, you know, y'all motherfuckers get mad when I start talking about the boogeyman that we be talking about. But white people create a boogeyman so that we can have something to want to fight against, to justify their wars, to justify their conquest, to justify the takeover of land. Because in the end, it's a land grab, but they got to create a scourge. They got to create something to fight and eliminate, to give them an excuse to go into places. You know, they had to create an excuse to go into Libya. You know, they wanted to save the people of Libya. Well, what about the Ivory Coast? Man, the motherfuckers is, like, how many people died in the Ivory Coast? 100,000? Or is it 1 million now? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a bunch of fucking zeros after that number. But ain't nobody going to save the people of the Ivory Coast. Ain't nobody going to do nothing in the Congo. Ain't nobody going to do nothing in Sudan. But they go to Libya? What made you choose Libya? Well, what do Libya got? What do you think Libya got? Right? So now they're going after Syria. What do Syria got? Shit, they got a movie about it called Syriana. You know what I mean? Like, this is a consistent thing. But if you think about it, Bin Laden, all the way back then, was used to justify the war on Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. So we got all that dope, all that oil, thanks to Bin Laden. But then you're like, oh, well, you know, there's tapes of Bin Laden floating around. All these tapes. If you look at the tapes really closely, you can tell that it's different people. I mean, word is bond. You can look, and they actually have still shots that people have posted online, because people have done this research. you know, those 9/11 truthers, man, they be good with their research, man. Not all of them, you know, some of them is real flimsy, but a lot of them be really digging. And they got still shots where you could see that the dude's nose is different. You could just tell, like, it just looked like all the way wrong. And so they've been issuing these tapes, and the craziest thing about it is all these tapes are talking about what Bin Laden is saying, and Bin Laden's talking about he gonna do this and he gonna do that, and even after they claim that they got him, they talking about, oh, they found evidence that they was talking about doing something on the anniversary of September 11th. Let me tell you something. Ain't none of these jihadis or whatever the fuck extremists, ain't nobody talking about no anniversaries. What? That's some European shit. An anniversary? We gonna do some shit to mark an anniversary? That's some crazy shit. Motherfuckers ain't talking about no anniversaries. That shit just sound white when you think about it, an anniversary. So they just create more things for you to think about, because now it's like, oh, well, now what they gonna do now that Bin Laden's dead? You know, now it's like, okay, now we gonna find somebody new. You know how we gonna find somebody new? It's probably gonna be them 2 phone numbers that they found sewn into his clothes. You believe that? 2 phone numbers sewn into his clothes. Now I know dope boys that can keep a whole phone book in their heads. You mean to tell me this dude that's supposed to be the head of a giant fucking organization can't memorize 2 goddamn phone numbers? Like my homie said, Jeb and George W.'s phone number shouldn't be that hard to memorize. Speaking of other issues, why the hell they ain't released no photos? You think they really trying to respect people that much? They ain't gonna release no photos? Come on now, they released the photos of Saddam's sons, all bloody and shit. Ain't had no problem doing that. Man, they released all kinds of gruesome, nasty shit. Hell, they let the Abu Ghraib photos get out. You know what I mean? Like, really? You mean to tell me they wasn't even no leak of this photo? I don't believe that. The thing is, what they trying to do is they realize that their Photoshop skills ain't up to par, and they trying to make sure they shit come out all the way right when they do release it. Plus, they trying to make sure motherfuckers forget about it, so they ain't analyzing the shit and all that. Because, come on now, you gonna verify that he died based off of DNA? When did he give you his DNA? Oh, it must have been that time that Tim Osman, a.k.a. Bin Laden, was visiting the U.S. and was a guest of the motherfucking government. Oh, they don't want to talk about that, though. But look that up, Tim Osman. Anyway, if you believe in all this shit, man, you're silly as a motherfucker, or you're just not really informed, which is okay, because the information is not widely available. If you're watching Fox News, you know what Fox News is doing right now? Fox News is doing a special on the afterlife. How the hell you got fucking news doing a special on the afterlife? They talking about they gonna find out what happens after you die. Hey, that's some crazy shit. That's what they doing on the news right now. That's the news. So I can understand why people don't really know about what's happening. I don't know where the hell to turn right here. Anyway. Bottom line is, they create mythical enemies so that we can stay at war. The thing is, something will have to come after this. And if you've been paying attention, it's always been something black or brown. Even when they did that Newsweek cover with the children of Bin Laden, it was a black dude. All the dudes they rounded up after September 11th was African, or half black. Even Richard Reed, the dude, the shoe bomber, he was half Jamaican. I talk about all this in How to Hustle and Win, you know. Zacharias Moussaoui, North African, you know, he looked black. Everybody. Then they got Jose Padilla. He was, I think, Puerto Rican or something. You know, they got the Haitians out in Miami. So that's their whole MO. And so if you down with something that resembles something anti-government, you may become a target, because that's kind of the way that the laws are written right now. The laws are written right now to catch anyone who might be a dissident. This is the same thing they was doing during the Red Scare, during the McCarthy era, where they was catching anybody that even resembled a communist. Even if you wasn't even talking about overthrowing the American government or nothing, if you just even resembled a communist, talk like a communist, or said anything to sympathize with the support of the communists, you was getting investigated. Hell, they even investigated fucking Helen Keller, Helen Keller. Who else did they investigate? Shit, they might have investigated Amelia Earhart on some, I don't know. It's sometimes I got such a jumble of information in my head, it'd be hard to sort through it. And sometimes I just end up driving just any goddamn where while I'm talking, man. I hope y'all appreciate this shit, because I'll be burning up. This fucking Benz takes premium gas. Its gas is like $8.90 a gallon right now. I hope motherfuckers appreciate the fact that I am trying to pass on some information that you might not be getting otherwise. And I'm gonna call it a wrap on that, because really, homie, the bottom line is, it ain't no conspiracy theory, man. Like, we know that there's just been a history of us being told lies. Like, shit that just ain't true. And it's up to us to investigate and to keep a critical mind and to think critically. And the unfortunate thing is, those of us that do think critically, we end up being attacked. Like, look what happened to the ball players and all them. Look at Mendenhall, and it's a whole bunch of others. And if I can say one thing about that, we talk all this shit about rappers that's ignorant, and rappers ain't doing this, and rappers is negative influences and all that. But what happened when these ball players is putting their careers on the line, talking about some truth where they asking questions about this whole incident, the same thing I'm talking about? Man, ain't nobody going to the